Hello, I'm Patty Simpson of Simpson Math. Let's look at the characteristics of probability. So first, the probability is just the extent to which an event is likely to occur. It's how likely is something is to occur. And we measure it by a ratio, a fraction of the favorable cases to the number of total cases that there are. So let me give you an example. Here I have a bag of Skittles. If I open that bag and I see how many Skittles are in my bag, well, I have 2, 3, 4 red Skittles. I have 2 yellow Skittles. I have 2 orange Skittles. I have 3 green Skittles, and I have 1 purple Skittles in my bag. And I want to know if they're in the bag and I just randomly pour one out, what is the probability that I'm going to get out a green one? So, if these are in the bag and then I shake them up, and then randomly just choose one out, what's the probability that that one is a green? And the way we find that probability is we create this ratio of favorable cases, in this case a green, to the total number of cases. So a little bit of notation about probability. When we talk about probability, we use a P, and then we put inside our parentheses whatever it is that our favorable case is. So in this case, my favorable case is a green. Some people will write it as X equals green because the color is your variable, or we could just write it with just the probability of green. Then to find that probability, we take the number of favorable cases. In this case, there are 3 favorables, 3 greens, and we put it over the total number that there are. Well, I could just count my Skittles to find out the total number, or I could add them up. 4 plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11, plus 1 is 12. So there are 12 total Skittles in my bag. So the probability is 3/12. Or we could reduce that down to 1/4. So that the probability that I get a green is 1 out of every 4 attempts. I would expect to get a green out of my bag. So if I did that again, where I mixed them all up and pulled out a Skittle from my bag, 1 out of 4 attempts of doing it, I would expect to get a green. I can also write that fraction, we know, as a decimal. So 1/4 is the same as 25 hundredths, or I could write it as a percent out of 100. So think about moving that to the hundredths place, would be times 25 times 25, so it's 25%. All of these are acceptable ratios that show that probability. So 1/4 of the time, or 25 hundredths of the time, or 25%. So a big deal about probability is that our probability is going to be a fraction. One of the characteristics is that probability is a fraction. So that you have a ratio, a part out of the whole. But let's look at this next thing to find out another characteristic of it. What is the probability I get a blue? So if I choose just 1 Skittle out of the bag, how often am I going to get a blue out of my bag? Well, how many blues do I have? There are 0 blues. So the probability that I get a blue, my favorite outcome is blue, is 0 out of the total of 12 Skittles. But 0 divided by 12 is 0. There's not a blue in the bag, so the probability that I get a blue is 0. So if something is not probable, then we say that probability is 0. It can't happen. So when I say probability is a fraction, it's a fraction that includes 0 as well. So my probability it's got to be greater than or equal to 0. So in this case, it's actually equal to 0 because it's not probable. So when your probability is 0, it means it cannot happen. Let's check out this last one. What is the probability I get a Skittle? If I draw out of the bag, what's the probability that I get a Skittle? Well, I'm going to get a Skittle every single time. All 12 of my things in the bag are Skittles. So the probability I get a Skittle, well, there are 12 Skittles in the bag out of a total of 12, which is 1 or 100%. 100% of the time I'm going to get a Skittle. It's a for sure thing. So when our probability is 1, it means it is a for sure thing. So when I say that the probability is a fraction, it's a fraction including 0 and 1. So my probability is going to be it's going to be greater than 0, but less than or equal to 1. And that's going to be true for all of our probabilities. So as you get probability questions, you should always check to make sure that your answer is somewhere between 0 and 1. It can be 0 if it's not likely, if it can't happen at all. And it can be 1 if it for sure will happen. Then your probability can be 0 or 1, or something in between. But if I get something like 3.6 as my answer, I know that something's wrong because my probability should be between 0 and 1. Math Made Simple, it's Simpson Math. Thanks for watching.